Hi, thanks for joining me with Wilderness with Amani. I'm going to talk about what it means for a lake to turn over, because winter fishing is going to start coming up and I want people to be prepared for that type of fishing in reservoirs. When you're fishing in reservoirs, you don't really got to worry about that stealth approach like in alpine lakes, because the fish in reservoirs typically aren't right on the bank like they are in alpine lakes. But in the wintertime when the lake turns over, the big trout will be really close to shore a lot of times. They could be anywhere from 3 feet of water to 50 feet of water. So it really varies, but you catch a lot of fish in shallow water. What it means when a lake turns over, right now I'm fishing in the deep water Big Bear Dam because this lake hasn't turned over yet. It's not cold enough. There's a space in the lake called the thermocline, and typically that's around 30 feet, 40 feet, and it's where the ice cold water down below meets the warmer water up above. And there's an oxygenated layer right there. And typically that's where there's a lot of plankton, and then the food chain goes up to smaller fish, to trout, to bigger trout that eat smaller trout, and so forth. Once you get a period where you have freezing temperatures at night and the daytime temperatures don't get above like 50 degrees, then you have a situation where the lake will turn over, meaning you got the cold water on top and you got the cold water on bottom, the oxygenated water's everywhere, and there's not a lot of boat traffic, and the big trout will be really close to shore, and they're really easy to catch with that reservoir fishing for reservoir trout rig that I use, the slip sinker. What I like to do is I usually have 1 leader about 3 feet for my night crawler, and then on my other pole, you can use 2 poles in California. I have a 2-rod license. The second rod, I'll have a longer leader with power bait. With that setup, I usually will throw one line just far enough where I can't see. And I won't seek out the really deep water. I will fish some shallower water that's only about 20 feet deep. So if you have 20 feet deep water and your leader's 4 or 5 feet long and your bait's floating up, then a fish that's cruising above it's gonna smell that and come down and nail it. Another thing I like to do after the lake's turned over, if it's a sandy area without a lot of rocks and there's a slope, I like to put a whole night crawler on and not inflate it. And I'll throw it right on that sandy slope because big browns will nail that natural night crawler. And if it's only about 5 to 10 feet of water, they can pick up that scent when it's on the ground. So if you throw your line out like that, I like to do that when it starts to get darker, when like it's in the afternoon and the shadows on the water. Sometimes I like to find that shallower water and throw out a full night crawler. Fishing's about making adjustments. You just don't want to walk up and throw it out as far as you can. You might want to try that for a while and then bring it in closer and try different depths, because those big fish you'll catch 16, 18-inch holdover trout, the trout that were planted in the summer or the summer before that have lived in the lake and have gotten big, will be right there ready for you to catch in the wintertime. There's a lot of good reservoirs in California. Like if you go, like Ice House Lake near Sacramento is a really good lake because the power company plows the road. It's only at about 6,000 feet, so you can access it all year. Other lakes, anywhere where the temperatures, just watch the temperature, watch the 10-day forecast. Watch when the temperatures are down in below freezing at night and not above 50 or 60 degrees during the day. And once that is sustained for a while, the lake will turn over. You know, the colder the better. Lake Don Pedro fits that bill. It gets really cold out there in the middle of winter. And then the fishing often up in the mountains when the snow starts to melt, like mid-February into March, the fishing usually gets really good. So if you want to do something nice, the nice thing about fishing at this time of year is there's not a lot of people at the lakes at that time of year. These lakes, these mountain reservoirs at 4,000 feet, these reservoirs in areas that get cold in the wintertime, that are just packed in the summer. You go out there when it's cold, you put on some long sleeves and you put on a ski jacket. And I usually bring a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag. If there's snow, you just lay it on the snow and you can take a nap. I love taking naps. Put a bell on your rods, cast them out. Just keep trying different depths. Another thing I like to do when the lakes turn over is I just try to fish a bobber, and I'll either put a worm or I'll put power bait. If you ever want to fish power bait on a bobber, a good technique to do is put the small piece of power bait and then get a couple pieces of sand, big large grain sand, and mix it in with the power bait, and it'll make the power bait sink, because power bait floats, and if you're fishing a bobber, you want it to sink. So that's good. You can throw that out there and just let the wind take it. Clip the bobber about 3 feet up the line, and just let it. You can throw it out and let it flow all the way into the shore. That's another technique. Maybe you want to put on a Rapala once the sun goes down. That's an effective technique I like to use. Once the sun is off the water, if it's a lake, especially if it's got brown trout, once the shadows are on the water, just walk and cast, retrieve, walk and cast, retrieve. I sometimes will hike down the shoreline and then I'll just work my way back to my car, just walking, casting. There's a lot of different things to do. Just understand, once the lake turns over, those fish that you would need a fish finder to find will be right there accessible for scrubs like me on the shore. Learn your slip seeker rigs, try different length leaders. Say the water's only 10 feet deep. You might just want to use a 2 or 3 foot leader. Try different things. You always have to try different things. There's not one way to do it. There's little intricacies that you can do that'll make the difference between catching fish and no fish. If it's not that deep, I'll just put a 2 or 3 foot leader and just throw it out like 5 or 6 feet and just let it sit there, and you might just nail something. If the water's under 7 feet deep, sometimes I just throw something on the bottom. I'll put a night crawler on the bottom and then just put a little piece of power bait for scent on the eye of the hook. So I hope that helps you catch fish this winter. I'm gonna hopefully do some fishing this winter so you can see me doing it, not just sitting here talking about it. It's not cold enough for me to do winter fishing. I'm fishing deep water by the dam right now, and that's the only clip I can do today. Get your warm clothes ready, get some snowshoes maybe, and snowshoe to a part of the lake you want to get to, and do some winter trout fishing, because you're going to catch some big trout. Just make sure you check your drag before you start. Check your knots and pull your line and make sure your line can strip off there easy, because if you hook something big, you don't want it to run and bust your line in one shot. You want your reel to be able to strip line out. So I hope that helps you catch fish this winter. I hope you take advantage of the lakes once they turn over. Watch the temperatures of the local mountain lakes and the lakes in the foothills and see if they get cold enough to turn over. And you're gonna have a great winter and a great early spring of fishing if you pay attention and you follow those techniques. Thank you for joining me with Wilderness with Monty, and get out there and catch some fish this winter.